Namaskar. We have until now seen a few modules in human geography. We continue to do the same with a new module today. The module is on human races of the world. If you look at the population and the people of the world, they are of different color, different shades of colors, and different appearances. We seem to ask a question: why are they so different? What made them different? There are indeed several questions as to the nature of human resources. The first and the most important question we ask is, what is the nature of human races? Are they biological basis to human differences? Or is the concept of race merely a cultural construction? If a race has a biological basis, how do these differences come about? How long has variations like the one we see around us been around? And what are the implications of the way we divide the human species? In order to look at these questions, we should really go back in time and look at the evolution of human species from the time we began to walk on our 2 feet and became Homo sapiens much later. Much of our biology and behavior is framed within an evolutionary background. We have to understand the question of races from this evolutionary background. Modern humans are a part of the natural world. As vertebrates, mammals and primates, we share a host of biological features with these animals. One of the things that we will be concerned with in this class is to examine the development of those features that make us unique. In fact, the question we would like to answer is, why are we unique from other animals? If you look at Homo sapiens, the evidence we have are all in the fossils. Through the study of the fossil records, and more recently, comparisons of the genetic material of living humans and fragments of the genetic materials from several extinct human groups, being able to begin the reconstruction of our species as separate and as having a separate evolutionary history. We last shared a common ancestor with our closest living primate relatives, which are the African apes, chimpanzees, and gorillas, who lived probably between 5 and 8 million years ago. Comparisons of our genetic material with that of chimpanzees reveals that we are about 98.3% to 98.6% genetically identical with the African ape. It has also been estimated that differences is only about 50 genes separate them from us. If we look at the human origins, we are distantly related to gorillas about 10 million years ago, and to chimpanzees about 5 to 8 million years ago. And we have evolved as a separate human species only in the last 2 or so million years ago. If you look at the fossil history and the fossil evidences studied and documented, we understand that the first ever human population began its evolution in the continent of Africa. It's from the continent of Africa the humans have migrated to different parts of the world. The migration itself began sometime about 100 or so thousand years ago. It was about, say, 40,000 years ago, a group of humans went into Europe. About 60,000 years ago, a group of humans came into India and then spread further into Australia. And by the time they reached Australia, it was almost about 40,000 years ago. And the human groups reached South America, the very southern end of South America, about 10,000 years ago. So when we come to the question of races, we have a first consideration. That is, the concept of race is one of the most misunderstood ideas of human history, and that one has caused a great deal of misery and harm in the world, in the ancient and the old world, and also in the modern world. So the initial points that must be considered are whether or not there is some biological and evolutionary reality to the question of race, or whether this aspect of human biology has been put through a cultural filter. So just how does our society define race? So we get to the study of race. For much of human history, people have been concerned about the nature and meaning of the physical differences that distinguish human populations across the world. Often, in addition to their biological features, members of different racial groups also had psychological and emotional attributes attributed to them. The question is there a reality to human difference? In fact, there is a reality to human difference. There are all sorts of differences amongst humans, and we are all aware that people vary in facial and body features. We also know that these differences extend to the genetic materials themselves. In other words, such differences are biological and could be identified genetically. Indeed, there are parts of the human genome that are so hypervariable that examination of these specific locales can identify specific individuals with a 1 in 88,000 chance of mistaking one person with another. Of course, this is very far-fetched.